Every time you transfer money, send a secure message, or log into your bank, you rely on a zero-trust architecture. The system assumes everyone is a threat, demanding strict cryptographic proof before a single digital lock slides into place. Yet, the mechanism we use to transfer the ultimate power in our society operates on the exact opposite principle. Our voting infrastructure asks us to hand over our civic voice and simply trust the outcome, offering zero verifiable proof in return. Lawrence Lessig posited a fundamental shift for the digital age. Code is law. Sovereignty resides in the algorithms, the invisible set of rules that defines what is possible in our modern reality. In Western democracies, this law is written in invisible ink. The software inside these voting terminals is entirely hidden from public scrutiny, walled off by corporate trade secret protections that prevent anyone from inspecting the code that actually tallies the vote. When the process of translating a voter's intent into a final count is completely opaque, sovereignty quietly shifts away from the voting public and into the hands of the private corporations writing the algorithms. Up until the 1890s, voting was largely a public act. You stood in front of a clerk and declared your choice out loud. To curb local politicians from buying individual votes, nations adopted the Australian secret ballot, moving the entire process behind a curtain. This solved the problem of retail bribery, but it introduced a massive structural vulnerability. When the vote is secret, the count is secret, and whoever controls a secret count holds absolute power over the result. Political scientists have a specific term for exploiting this exact kind of vulnerability: state crimes against democracy, or SCATs. An SCAT occurs when government insiders coordinate to manipulate democratic processes. Instead of coercing voters one by one in the open, bad actors can execute wholesale administrative fraud from behind the scenes. The secrecy we have been taught to view as a democratic safeguard actually functions as a systemic bug. It creates an unobservable environment for an elite class to mechanize fraud without leaving a trace. To see how this architecture is actively exploited, we have to look past the hanging chads of the 2000 Florida election. That race serves as the primal scene for modern electronic election interference. Before the House Judiciary Committee, computer programmer Clint Curtis testified under oath that in the fall of 2000, high-ranking political operatives hired him to write a specific piece of software. He built a prototype designed to intercept a running tally, flip the necessary ratio of votes, and secure a 51% victory, all while remaining entirely undetectable. 4 years later, the 2004 Ohio election demonstrated an even more sophisticated exploit: the man-in-the-middle attack. This network map shows how, on election night, as returns came in, the Ohio Secretary of State's servers unexpectedly crashed. All voting traffic was suddenly rerouted to a backup server in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a private facility owned by Smartech, a highly partisan IT firm. When the raw data exited the Tennessee server and the system came back online, the challenger's lead had evaporated. A statistically impossible shift occurred in the raw numbers, flipping the state and the presidency to the incumbent. These historical penetration tests reveal a hard truth. Our electoral infrastructure is functionally indistinguishable from a captured asset, easily manipulated by anyone with the right administrative privileges. By the 2024 and 2025 cycles, this quiet manipulation became overt. Following his victory in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump explicitly credited Elon Musk's technical prowess with the win, stating publicly that Musk knows the vote-counting computers. The electorate is reduced to a mere user interface. The actual election is a sysadmin war, where rival factions battle for root access to the opaque software counting the ballots. The entire premise of a secret, unobservable ballot relies on the assumption that we can trust the people running the machines to act with a baseline level of morality and honesty. The unsealing of the Epstein files challenged that trust on a fundamental level. The court documents expose deep networks of organized predation and human trafficking at the highest levels of global power, implicating tech moguls, princes, and presidents in systemic deviance. This elite deviance creates a fatal logical conflict. The secret ballot requires us to trust that the counters possess a baseline morality. But when the people holding the keys have demonstrated a willingness to violate the most fundamental human taboos, the assumption that they will honor an easily manipulated civic code becomes an unsustainable risk. If we leave this black box architecture unpatched, we are locked into a very specific trajectory, driven by a rapid shift in the value of human labor. For centuries, the elite required the masses for labor and warfare. Now, advanced robotics and artificial intelligence are rapidly breaking that dependency, replacing the need for a human workforce altogether. There is exactly one viable alternative timeline. We have to patch the vulnerability by immediately abolishing the 130-year-old experiment of the secret ballot. This requires moving to a public vote ledger. This visualization shows how the database would work. Every individual vote is non-anonymous, cryptographically signed by the citizen, and published on a massive, publicly accessible ledger on election night. By shifting to an open-source architecture, any citizen can verify the arithmetic. It becomes mathematically impossible for insiders to inject fake numbers or flip totals without creating an obvious, traceable discrepancy in the public ledger. We have to reverse the cameras. Instead of the state monitoring the public must be able to monitor the state's arithmetic. Forcing the electoral count into the light is the only mechanism left to reclaim sovereignty and survive the technocratic era.